You are now listening to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Welcome in and welcome all. We are back with the Insight NFL Podcast. We've got a nice little spoiler show for you today. It will be dropping for Wednesday morning, the 15th of October, nice and early before week 7. A buy low and sell high targets show, gentlemen. And this is the first time that we are doing this year. We'll see how the response is. And very well, we could be running this back next week. So make sure if you do see some value in this one, give us some love, hit that like button, follow it up with a nice subscribe, and you'll also get notified when we go live or drop shows each and every week. Without further ado, guys, we were talking a little bit beforehand. Trading. I know for me, trading is probably the biggest advantage that you can gain throughout through NFL fantasy. Drafting only really gets you so far. We know just how volatile the NFL is with injuries and how the landscape changes and how teams kind of progress as we find out who they are. Mav, when it comes to trading for you, are you do you have a little formula? Are you targeting certain teams? How does it kind of look for you before you line up a trade?
I try and trade players who I think overperforming at that current point in time. So guys like Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, CMC. Unless you're getting a haul and a big haul back, I wouldn't be trading on. And I'll mention my sell a bit later on. But my general rule is you don't trade premium running backs is my general rule, because they're very hard to get and hard to replace. But again, there's always asterisks next to certain players and why they are trending to why they're playing so well and why they're not. So, but yes, that is my general. Never trade premium running backs, but I will be going against my will in this episode, and I think there's good reason to do so. Yeah,
and I can account to that. I know I've sent through some very generous offers to Mav, and he just won't give up any premium running backs there. But DFAB, trading for you, mate. I know there's it's always good seeing that trade notification come through, but how do you see the buy low and sell high landscape?
Yeah, I love a buy low, but I think for me the biggest thing that I try to do with trading is stay water. Don't get so attached to your own guys. I know that by default we draft our guys, and the fact is you're never going to win the championship at the draft. Like, you need to be willing to trade your guys. It's very, very rare that you're going to be able to win a chip from the waiver wire. You kind of need to be willing to move players and not be so attached to them. So for me, when I'm going through these trades, it's just try to be analytical, take the names out of it, look at the schedule, look at how they performed, what their what their snap counts have been, what their target shares been, all that kind of stuff. It's take emotion out of it, take name and reputation out of it, and just try to go for actual opportunity. That's what I want to trade in.
Yeah, great point. And one thing that I see a lot with players, they tend to hold on to where they drafted a certain player, and they kind of refuse to trade someone in that's a little bit further on that they drafted. They think that the ADP beforehand really plays a big part. So you got to stay water. You got to be willing to move guys around because, the NFL, it just chops and changes so much. But before we jump into our sell highs, and we will have one each on either side for you tonight. So a nice 3 buy lows and 3 sell highs. We did finish up our waiver show on Tuesday night. The link is in the description below. So if you are looking for some waiver wire ads for week 7 and forward, that is going to be your best bet. And also tonight, our Supercoach trade show, which is an absolute phenomenal show each week. We get a really good feedback coming through on that one. It's going to be a monster as well with all the injuries that have gone through. So make sure you are tuning in on that, and both links will be below. But we'll start things off. Mav, you've got a sell high here in a running back. And yeah, you did touch on it. You're going against your way here. But I will just flip this over before you do get this started. Javonte Williams.
Yep. Look, no one predicted this guy to be the RB4, and he's the RB4 currently. After I suppose six weeks in, he's been fantastic this year. I can't lie, he has been fantastic. Look, his yardage has been okay. Nothing. He's had one big week, but outside of that, the yardage has been just okay. But he's been scoring nearly every week, multiple goal line carries. Again, there's probably not really a lot of competition around him, but I do believe that this will eventually drop back a bit. The offensive line's a bit shaky still. The offense is still up and down in the week. The Cowboys will factor in they're up to schedule coming up. Bad, but they just face Denver, Washington. Been pretty average, but I expect them to get pretty better by the time they come around there. Kansas are pretty good. Detroit are pretty good. Minnesota are pretty good. So it's a pretty tough schedule coming up over the next sort of month or two. So like if I'm trading Javonte, I'm selling it for a good package because that's what he's worth at the moment. I'd be looking at a solid 2-for-1, and obviously 2 players coming in. If you're trading a premium running back at this point, he would be one to he'd be one to trade. But also, I'd be trying to get a running back coming in that 2-for-1 as well. You could always get someone like a Derrick Henry at the moment who's been struggling, or a Kamara, or a Breece Hall. Guys like these guys who are sort of trending on opposite ways at the moment. But we know how good they can be when they're up and about. Kenny, what's his name? The guy from Seattle, Kenny Walker.
Ken Walker.
Sorry, another one.
Yep.
Who's been trending a bit downwards at the moment. These guys are good running backs, so I'd be looking at a 2-for-1 there. You could get like a Jamison Williams and a Kenny Walker or a Kamara. There's guys out there you can get 2-for-1s for. These guys will be better off eventually. There's a lot of trades you can do for Jonathan Williams, but as I said, multiple goal line carries is the reason why I think his score's been so inflated. Multiple scores in any given week. I think he's had 2 already, 2 weeks of multiple scores, not just more than one. So, he'd be one that I'd be looking to offload, and I feel like the cliff will be coming for him soon. He still might be a top 20 running back or a top 15 running back, but he won't be a top 5 running back by end of season, I'd imagine.
And just to throw this at you here, Mav, currently ranked 11 in Fantasy Pros ranking for rest of season and half PPR running backs. Bucky Irving is one spot below. Do you reckon you'd be able to get Bucky Irving? He is injured, dealing with that. Is that a move that you'd be willing to make, Javonte, for Bucky?
Straight swap, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I would be looking at doing that.
Probably get plus.
Maybe. I personally wouldn't do it if I was the Bucky owner. But yeah, that would be something I'd be looking into. I think Javonte Williams is a massive, massive sell high candidate. And look, if he's 11th right now and in the rest of season, then it's not too bad. But I just can't imagine what happens if Dak Prescott goes down. Like his value gets tanked, and Dak has tendencies to go down as well. So I would be looking to get off that market straight away. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And CeeDee Lamb expected to come back as well, so he could take some opportunities away from Javonte, and especially in that pass catching. For our next sell high DFAB, I will let you preface it, or would you like me just to throw it straight up and we'll roll into it?
Oh yeah, just chuck it straight up. It looks like we're all in Dallas just on a fire sale, because George Pickens is my sell high. And look, don't hear what I'm not saying. I think George Pickens is still going to be a really solid contributor for the remainder of the year. Their defense sucks and they have to throw the ball around. They're going to have to air it out. I talked in the preseason about how Dak and his air raid offense were going to give an opportunity for CeeDee Lamb to be the number 1 overall wide receiver, and how I thought Dak and CD were, one of the best stacks that you could have in fantasy or Supercoach. All that stuff is still true. I see Pickens as a mid-range, possibly bottom-end wide receiver 2, with wide receiver 1 upside on any given week. And he's had that the last few weeks because CD's been out, and he's currently sitting as the wide receiver 3. There is no way in any range of outcomes does George Pickens hold that same level of production when CeeDee Lamb is back. So it's as simple as we know that he's going to regress back to the mean. I think George Pickens has 5 touchdowns or something so far this year. Like he's scoring at an unbelievable clip that's not sustainable. We know there's a downturn coming. So if you can sell George Pickens, I think, straight up you've got guys like Lad McConkey. That would be a smash trade if you could get that done. He's currently wide receiver 26. Nico Collins, I'm taking that gamble. Currently wide receiver 23. And hey, look, you may get a nervous owner Justin Jefferson, who's currently wide receiver 18. Granted, he's had the bye, but you get someone that's every league has their guys that are maybe a little bit more casual or aren't paying as much attention to what's going on, and all they see is this guy George Pickens that has taken over the Dallas the Dallas wide receiver room. He's had 20 plus targets in the last 2 weeks and scored all these touchdowns. He's the new red zone threat. There's a really, really easy way where you can shape up George Pickens as this new Dallas Messiah and go get one of these legit first round level talents from the draft, and be poised for a really good run towards the back end of the year.
Prime opportunity too, coming off that monster week 6 performance, 27 points and half PPR scoring, 9 for 168 and a score. I will just throw this to you, DFAB. Rashee Rice, he's currently, I think, a couple spots higher in even compared to George Pickens. He hasn't even played a snap yet, but I know a lot of fantasy owners, they might be having a bit of hesitancy. George Pickens for Rashee Rice straight up. Is that something you'd be looking to do?
It'd be really dependent on what you've got around in your other wide receivers, but I genuinely think you could go George Pickens for Rashee Rice plus, knowing that all the reports are that Rashee Rice is going to be on a snap count to start the year. And what the hell is that noise? There's going to be Rashee Rice is going to be a slower burn to get to what we expect him to be, but if before he was injured at the beginning of last year, he was like bona fide, like top 5 level ceiling. So if just purely in a vacuum, who do I think is going to give you a better chance at winning week on week? Rashee Rice will over George Pickens. So I would push to try to get Rashee Rice plus. But if I had to do someone for the rest of the season, I want Rice more than I want Pickens.
And I have to quickly throw this out there, and I will ask you, Mav, Brian Thomas Jr. or George Pickens, you'd probably be able to get that deal done. Is that something you'd be looking for?
Good. That's a good one. It's probably a bit of a sideways trade if I'm being honest. So it's
for me that's easy. I want BDJ every day.
I don't know. I think BTJ's a bit of a cat still, so he makes me a bit nervous. So until he starts to harden up a little bit through the center of the field, maybe he might have a bit more value. But until then, he's a bit off my list at the moment. But it's a bit of a sideways trade regardless. He's starting to get going, I suppose. So we'll see how that ends. But no, I do love the Dallas offense through the air. I think there's going to be a lot of game scripts where they're behind, and with CD coming back, obviously he's going to fall back to number 2, and CD will get the majority of the targets you'd expect. It's also Dak's one injury away from this offense being non-existent. So Joe Milton would come in and obviously wouldn't be the same offense. But again, you can't predict injuries, so I'm not going to do it. But I like the call, man. I really like the call on DFAB. I think he's a good candidate to get rid of because he's exploiting at the moment, to be fair.
Likewise, in a current wide receiver 3, you should not have any problems at all trying to find an owner to take him on board. One that you might have a little bit of more struggles with moving off, Jameson Williams is my sell high, and it feels funny saying a sell high when he is currently wide receiver 34 in half PPR. He's coming off one of his best games of the year, 6 for 66 and also a touchdown. He did outscore Amon-Ra St. Brown in this game. But for me, Jameson Williams, I was so high on him to start the year, especially with the talks of offensive coordinator John Morton saying that he expects a breakout from Jameson Williams, even though we pretty much got a breakout last season. Just hasn't looked great. He looks to have taken a step back, and I even think Sam Laporta has overtaken him in terms of target tiers for Detroit Lions. And for me, I just want to get off this roller coaster that is Jameson Williams. He's too boom or bust. Last year he was winning you weeks with his big boom games, but this year, 15.6, 17 points. That's really the only 2 decent starts that you've been able to get, and they're definitely not week winners by any stretch. But in terms of low games, 4.6, 5.3, 4.7, and he dropped 1.5 against Cincinnati, which I thought was going to be an absolute smash spot for Jameson Williams. So very disappointing. I think you drafted him around round 6, round 7. I am definitely trying to cash in on this move after this big game for him. And he does have Tampa Bay coming up next week, so might have a bit of an egg on my face if he does go big. But even still, I'm trying to cash out. Maybe even using that as a little bit of a sell tactic. Hey, guys, he's got Tampa Bay next week. Baker and the boys are going to be putting up points. They might need to get into a bit of a shootout. Perfect, because after that, he's got a week 8 bye. If I can move off players that have their buys up and coming and maybe even pick someone up that's had their bye, I'd be looking at Jordan Addison. I'd be happy to trade him for Jamison Williams straight up. I think that would be super achievable. One that's a little grosser, and I know that Mav probably won't like, but Zay Flowers, I'd rather have him over Jamison Williams when Lamar comes back. And when they come back on bye, their defense is horrid. They should have a lot of shootout potentials, and I think Zay Flowers is just going to see a lot more work than Jamison Williams. And on the defensive side of the ball, Jamison Williams, Detroit, their secondary's been so banged up, and even with that kind of aspect and the thought that they should be in more shootouts with that banged up defense, Jamison Williams just really hasn't done anything. So for me, he's a massive sell. Again, you might have some struggles because he's wide receiver 34, but highlight the talent, highlight the offense, highlight the matchup in week 7 against Tampa, and hope to cash in while you still can on Jamison Williams.
Yeah, I will just quickly say on Jamo as well, the cool thing about going about the sell high on him is that you can. It's almost going to package like a buy low for a lot of people because he is wide receiver 34 with how he played at the back end of last year. So it's going to be. I think it's actually going to be a really easy sell. You know, with guys like a George Pickens that are wide receiver 3, you know you're not going to get wide receiver 3 value for him because people know there's going to be some sort of regression coming. Whereas with Jamison, you've got that narrative of, you know, he's been okay so far, but he's struggled a little bit. You know, he came good at the back end of last year. You're going to get that this year. You know, there's a couple of different ways you can frame that and make it feel like to the guys that are taking him that he's about to boom. So he's one you can have a lot of fun with to try to get a deal done.
Yeah, I love that DFAB. I might even try and use that when I try and offload him after we finish up this show. But guys, there's our sells. Just to recap: Javonte Williams, George Pickens, and Jamison Williams, and probably just another one to throw in there as well with George Pickens, Jake Ferguson for the same kind of aspect. CD Lamb's coming back probably next week. He's been massive at the moment. If you can cash in on him as well, definitely be looking to do so. But we will move on to our buys. Mav, to kick things off, I will throw your guy up here on the screen for you.
Mate, Lad McConkey, please go and buy him low if you can. I think had a very slow start. He was rumoured to be the wide receiver 3 at certain aspects of the season early on. We all know that there was probably some backs to that at the point, but let's be honest, he still probably is number 1, if not number 2 option there. Two solid weeks back to back now. Fantasy managers are still sort of questioning: do I start him? Do I bench him? They're not too sure how to play him. He was fantastic in week 5. He was even better in week 6. The running game, obviously no Hampton there, but Vidal still saw 17 carries. Haskins was still sort of involved just a little bit. So again, probably early 20s in terms of running carries there on the running backs. Yes, Cuge was out in week 6, so that gave a bit more opportunity there for Ladd to get going, but they need Ladd to get going if that's where the Chargers are going to go to that next step. He's electric in the slot. He's a fantastic route runner, and they just need him to be exploding. And again, we saw him at the back end of last year. He was really, he blossomed, and I think that this is the case still, where he will start and continue to really get going in 2025. As I said, it's been a slow start, but I'm not too worried. His upcoming schedule isn't too bad either. Colts this week, Minnesota the week after, which is a bit of a tough matchup, but he plays in the slot, so it shouldn't affect him too much. In fact, he should probably see more targets based off the good corners they've got there. And then Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, Vegas, Philly in the upcoming weeks. So. And Dallas, they've placed Dallas in a playoff game in fantasy playoffs, which is also a massive positive too. So plenty of opportunity here for Lad McConkey to get going. Now we drafted him probably as a high 3rd round pick, somewhere around that area, maybe 2nd round pick if you play in 1 QB leagues. I still think he can get to that point still, maybe slightly maybe around there if you get some good return on investment and he provides in that sort of that area that you drafted him perfect. But even if he was just a little bit lower, then that's fine too. I still think the ceiling's quite high and should have a low floor in the next few weeks. I reckon it should start evening out and he should be fine. So don't panic. If you can buy him on any fantasy managers that are panicking, go and get him. I've got him in a couple of leagues myself. I've had some offers out there that you're like, I don't know, like it's a fair offer because that's where he's doing, but I know Lad can perform better than that. I mean, I got a Kenny Walker deal, for example, like a straight swap, and I was like, that's not a bad deal, but I know Lad can outperform Kenny Walker. So I let that one go, and Lad didn't disappoint. So I think you have to trade him for what he's worth, but you can also buy low on him because I think fantasy managers are still sort of questioning of his ability, but I'm not. I'm on that category of he's fine, but go and buy low on him because other people are lower than way lower than what I am. So the offers coming through have been pretty disrespectful.
Yeah, I love this one. Mav, just to throw this here to you, looking at rankings as well, Quinton Johnson is actually slotted ahead of Lad in rest of season, so you could definitely use that to your advantage if you are looking to buy low. A couple of names I will throw at here, Mav, just to get a couple of trade options out there. People that are behind him, I mean, Michael Pittman Jr. Would you rather him or Lad McConkey rest of season?
Lad all day.
I mean, Terry McLaurin, he's injured at the moment, but a few spots back, no brainer.
Yeah,
one that's probably
there's so many avenues. There's so many avenues you can go down. I mean, as I said, you can even go and trade my trade target, my trade sell high. You can actually go and, as I said, you can sell Javonte Williams. You can get a Lad McConkey and something else to go with it. Like, it's crazy what you can get. You know what I mean? So, you can probably get, as I said, Lad McConkey and Kenny Walker coming back the other way. I think he'd be winning that trade by heaps. So, I love it. And look, he could bust on us, but I think it's probably safe that he doesn't. So
yeah, everything's lining up for Lad to get a lot of the work. DFAB, you've got a nice little buy low here, a guy that we definitely weren't expecting at the start of the year to be in this category. Who have you got for us?
Derrick Henry, King Henry. That's kind of more like a court jester at the moment. He's RB17. Has his bye. I'm having a bit of a brain fade. This week or next week, right? Or is it this week coming? This coming week. So you've got a guy that has currently been well unders on what you drafted him to be. He was a back-end first-round guy. Everyone thought he was going to kind of follow the same route, and he looked like it after week one. He was the overall running back one and looked absolutely dominant, broke off multiple big runs. So, Derrick Henry is still a flat-out machine, but he's had a really hard start to the year. So they've played in 5 of their first 6 games, they've played top 10 run defenses. Now having their bye, they've also had their defense absolutely decimated, so they've had to throw the ball more. Lamar Jackson's then also been hurt, and let's be honest, part of what gives Derrick Henry so many open lanes is the threat that the linebackers need to account for by having this QB spy against Lamar Jackson. It makes it so much more dynamic having Lamar in the backfield to be able to rush out. Let's speak it like Cooper Rush. No one gives a shit about Cooper Rush. They know that while he's under center, the entire offense is predicated around Derrick Henry. And that makes it much easier to defend against, and that's why his opportunities have been a little bit lower. Like, it's just been a perfect storm of negative for Derrick Henry. After the bye, we expect Lamar Jackson to be a bit healthier. We expect the guys around him to be healthier. We're hoping guys like Roquan Smith and stuff like that. The defense starts to get bolstered a little bit, and they start to look a little bit more like the Baltimore Ravens that we expected to see at the start of the year. Don't get me wrong, I don't think Derrick Henry is going to push to be a top 12 running back this year. I talked a lot about it, specifically with Kyron Williams on my Instagram and through pods in the preseason, that the 300 carry rule is real, and Derrick Henry has had 5 of his last 7 seasons over 300 carries. His body would be cooked. Like he's going to inevitably break down, and I don't think that he has a top 12 running back finish for the season in him for this year, but it's inside the range of outcomes. So if you can get someone that could realistically finish top 5, but you're only paying a back end RB2 price for him, you go get him. So like if I had, like Mav said before, if I had a Javonte Williams, I'm going to go try and get Derrick Henry plus, try to get a Derrick Henry and, a wide receiver 2 that you can sit in your flex, or, go to the car, if I'm Kyron. If I'm the Kyron manager, I'm trading away Kyron Williams, who's been super reliant on touchdowns, to go get a Derrick Henry plus. You could get a Derrick Henry plus like a Cortland Sutton. I think you could have a conversation about getting those two for a Kyron Williams with where he's at the moment. So I think at the price point that you need for Derrick Henry at the moment, it's a really good buy low, knowing what's inside his range of outcomes.
Also on top, that he's currently on his buy.
Yeah,
it'll just make things so easier. I mean, if you're in a league where you're 3-3, 4-2, I mean, even 2-4 on the other end, and you just want to kind of punt this week, Derrick Henry could be the difference to get you through once he comes off bye. And Chicago, Miami, first 2 weeks back on deck. That's definitely some good get right spots for the King to get things moving. So yeah, love Derrick Henry there. I unfortunately won't be able to trade for him because I drafted him everywhere, and it's been costing me in a lot of leagues so far this year. But we hang true. Yeah, not every, because Matt absolutely loves to hoard premium running backs, as we as you like to go there. So a good couple of options there for buys: Lad McConkey, Derrick Henry, and the last guy that we have tonight, Breece Hall. Here's my buy low. And Breece Hall, it might feel a little bit gross, especially if you did watch that Jets-Broncos game. It was just, I'm throwing that one in the bin. It just wasn't, it's not on my radar. That didn't happen. Justin Fields playing that, Aaron Glenn coaching the game like that way. That's just definitely not what we can expect from Breece Hall. He did have a bit of a slower start to the year, especially with Braylon Allen in the fold, getting a lot of the goal line carries, which removed a lot of Breece's upside in terms of production. But his base stats alone, I mean, he looks like the clear running back still on the Jets, especially now Braylon Allen's injured on IR. I think he's still out for a few more weeks on top of the 4-week IR. Isaiah Davis is getting absolutely no looks whatsoever. Breece Hall, just running through it. He hasn't had a touchdown either to start this year. So all these stats purely just on rushing and also catching. Week 1, 15.5, not bad. Week 2 and 3 were pretty low games against Buffalo and Tampa Bay. Miami, 13.6, Dallas, 15.5. And then, of course, that stinker, 5.9 for Breece. But one thing I love about Breece, not only is he super explosive, doesn't need a whole lot of touches, he is involved heavily in the receiving game besides that stinker that was last week. And with the news to Garrett Wilson missing time with that knee injury, even more is just going to be put on Breece Hall's lap. There has been some reports that Breece Hall could be a trade candidate for the Jets. Perfect. That's even more contingent upside on why I'm willing and looking aggressively to buy low on Breece Hall, because he's been linked to the Chiefs, linked to the Chargers. If he goes to any of those teams, perfect. He'll slide in there, be the number one. And even if you want to kind of flip around and play the stock game, as soon as you pick him up, and if he does get traded to a team like that, you could sell him before he even plays a snap on that team, because his value would just be absolutely sky high, and you could definitely pick up something else along the line if you want to play that. Breece Hall, though, if he does stay with the Jets, they've got Carolina next week, who have been absolutely leaking points to running backs, and also Cincinnati, who we all know their defense is just absolutely shot. In terms of potential trade offers for Breece Hall that I'd be looking to do, if you did pick up Rico Dowdle for the last couple of weeks off waivers, you'd be very easily able to package him with something. There is talks that Chuba might miss some more time, but again, that's going to be a very murky situation. I'd much rather package Rico and the explosion that he's done the last 2 weeks with a little something small for Breece Hall. I mean, hell, I might even try go Rico for Breece Hall straight up. You might get a couple of managers that just don't want anything to do with the Jets whatsoever that could get that done, but I think Rico plus is the type of area that I'd be looking to do for Breece Hall here. Gents, anything from you guys on Breece or any other kind of mentions in this?
Nah, Great call, and specifically on the Rico Delta one, he was almost my sell. That, for me, it reeks of, like, that Tuba versus Rico, who's the starter, what's it going to look like? For me, it feels a lot like trying to navigate Etienne versus Tank Bigsby last year. Like, when Etienne was out, Tank Bigsby was a machine, and then when they were both healthy, it was just gross. You could never pick who was who. It's just not a fun one to navigate. So if I can get off that train, I'm going to. I really like Breece Hall. If for some reason he does get traded, phenomenal. If he stays, phenomenal. Hopefully, if they trade anyone, it's Justin Fields and they find someone that can actually pass the fucking ball. But yeah, I really like those guys. I think Omarion Hampton is another buy low. I know we talked about him on last night's show. Kamani Vidal, if I happen to be the guy that I lucked out on getting him, I'm trying to sell him high really too. I don't think that level of production is going to be sustainable from him. So any guys like that, like your waiver wire guys that have just blown up and the situation looks like it's perfect, trade them away. Just try to capitalize on that top tier, especially when you know that at best you've got 4 or 5 weeks of it. Just get rid of them. Try to find something more sustainable for the rest of the year.
That's how you're going to gain advantages too. Flip those waiver ads, get more solidified assets. Mav, from you, any closing thoughts to our first buy low and sell high show?
Yeah, I didn't mind the Breece Hall take, to be honest. Garrett Wilson's been missing some time as well. So I think there's a lot of potential value there for Breece Hall. He's going to see a hell of a lot of carries. Saw a hell of a lot of carries in that Denver game against Denver. He's had 24, 25 carries, whatever it was, and no receptions. And I think that they're going to have to use him more in the passing game without Garrett Wilson in the coming weeks too. So plenty of volume up for grabs there for Breece Hall if he gets traded, as you guys said. And I'm going to mirror it. It's going to be probably an upgrade, and he could go to the moon if he goes to any team that's half decent or a playoff team as such. That could be great value. But outside of that, I don't really have anyone else off the top of my head. There's always Justin Jefferson's not a bad buy low option, to be honest with you. If we're talking about premium wide receivers, he's probably the cheapest he's ever been in fantasy football. So he's one guy that you could go and target. Safe, reliable, and I think he'll be fine as the season goes along and gets a connection with either Carson Wentz or McCarthy, whoever played centre. But he's reliable, and he'll be fine. He'll work himself out. But he's, as I said, the cheapest he's ever been in fantasy football is currently right now. He's 3 or 4 solid years of football.
Yeah, agreed.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Guys, that will wrap things up here for our first buy lows and sell highs show of the season. If you're getting some moves done, let us know in the comments what you're able to do if you picked up any of these guys or moved any of these guys away. And just to reiterate, we will have our waiver wire show linked in the description, and make sure to stay tuned for our live stream tonight at 7:30 for our Supercoach Trade Show. Thanks heaps. That's the Insight NFL team. We'll see you guys tonight.
See you guys.
Cheers.